while we're here in Florida at Blueberry Hill RV Resort, we're staying pretty close to the Dade Historic Battlefield Park. This weekend they're actually having the reenactment of the Second Seminole War. So the story goes that there were 110 U.S. troops that were trying to round up the Seminole tribe to put them on the Indian reservations. And they were basically ambushed by 160 Seminole warriors, and only 3 of the U.S. troops survived, and only 3 of the Indian warriors were killed. So it was a very successful Indian defense of being put on those reservations. So we're going to go check that out. They actually do a reenactment once a year, and it's on the first weekend of the year at Dade Historic Battlefield Park. And there's lots of different activities, so we're going to go check that out just for a little while, take the dogs, and see a little bit of the reenactment.
Good girl.
In the battlefield area of the park, they've left the underbrush there to simulate what it looked like during the battle.
And under the tail there's an opening where his bowel movements occur. People that want to hide undamaged at the tannery where this was going to be processed, if I was going to sell it to a tannery, you enlarge the anal opening, split it up the tail, and you peel them inside out. Like when you take your socks off, they go inside out for a while. That's what you do to these guys, and insert the proper board so that you have a little resistance when you start scraping flesh and fat and other tissue. Once that's done, then you heavily salt it during this process to keep bugs and algae from growing. Then you soak it in the tanning solution, which gives it this greenish gray color. That's a chemical we use now on some of the hides. These two.
Little fuzzy cool factory. Yay, yay.
The next song we're going to do is another one by Frank Thomas, and it's a Civil War era song. It's actually about his great-grandfather, but if there's one thing that is universal in any war, it's the longing for home. And I know we have veterans in the crowd, and I thank you for your service, and I know that you can certainly empathize with that feeling of wanting to be at home, wanting to be with family, and then that trip home, and the thoughts that go through your mind on your way home. And this song was done by Frank about his great-grandfather, who was a veteran of the American Civil War. And it's called Flatwoods of Home, which is what people from Florida refer to these areas as Flatwoods. So. As I dream tonight of my home in Florida, I know my family, this is me.
This was one of the most significant Indian wars in American history that began here with this battle that you're going to see, the reenactment of it at 2 o'clock. So, and one of the most interesting things about it, I think, as far as the military side, is the uniform.
So I'm going to start from the top and just kind of work my way down, starting with my turban. The turban really started out as just a scarf or a rag tied around the head. And then over years, the style or the fashion of the turban kind of changed. The ostrich feathers, we would have traded for these. There's also what we call the language of the feather, depending on which side you wear your feathers or the way that you wear your feathers. Feathers in the front, you're a medicine man or a holy man. Feathers in the back, you're a chief. Feathers on the
efforts and because of his research and his dogged determination to find the truth, became recognized all over the state and all over the country, for that matter, as the prime world authority on Ransom Clark, who was one of the survivors of the Dade Battlefield. And Ransom Clark will be the character that I'm portraying today. Frank was devoted to the study of history, particularly of the Second Seminole War and of the struggle of the Seminole people throughout the time. He left us about 7 weeks ago at the age of 92. So I hope that you can join me today in recognizing the memory of a great man, a great friend, Mr. Frank Vollmer.
And with that, let's get our battle started.
We had been planning for over a year, and although we'd agreed to meet on the 1st of January, we were only going to agree to fight, not to leave this land. Our scouts had been following the soldiers since they left Fort Brooke, each night reporting where they camped. We'd wanted to attack them at the rivers, but Osceola and his warriors hadn't arrived yet. But now, soon they would be to Fort King. I ordered Alligator to make a count of the warriors. We were 180 strong. Now was the time. Now is when we attack. Each of our warriors found a position on the west side of the road, hidden by the trees and the palmettos. Micanopy, our leader, he was going to give the order to fire the first shot. He knew the man on the horse. He had been friends with him at Fort Brooke. He waited until the soldiers were about 20 yards out, and then he gave the order to fire. Finally all down. searching through the... When one of the warriors, he leapt up and he hit him in the head and spilled his brains on the ground. Ran. We made no further injury to the bodies of the soldiers. We retreated back to the swamp, where we celebrated into the night.
Battle took place with markers where some of the officers and Major Dade actually fell. So the reenactment, she didn't get to see much because what did Presley do?
She lost her mind over a horse.
She lost her mind over a
The
horse.
tiny horse was well behaved and just stared at the horse.
That's true. First, I had Presley.
Husky, not so much.
I was trying to set up the tripod, and I had Presley. Everybody loved the dogs.
Of course.
And Presley, this horse came up with a Australian Shepherd by it, with a guy walking it, and she was fine. She was sitting there. When the horse started to leave, she wasn't having any of it. She started going kind of crazy. Well, then the horse went on the other side. She never really settled down. I went over to put the drone up in the air, and Chris took Presley, and I guess Presley drove you crazy about the horse.
Mm-hmm.
There's some
Looks like there's some nice trails in there.
hiking trails there. The reenactment was pretty cool from what I saw. They also had a bunch of vendors there, and we really only went like 45 minutes before the reenactment. There's activities throughout the day. It's only $5 to get in. If you wanted to spend the days there, you know, you can go with dogs, without dogs. Dogs are perfectly allowed there. We saw quite a few, you know, a dozen or so dogs, but it's pretty cool. So the reenactment was cool. They kind of tell you about what happened. Where they do the reenactment isn't the actual site. It's just near the site. Where the actual site is, they've got some markers for where some of the generals and some of the important people in the U.S. Army lost their lives actually in the battle. And then they had exhibits or vendors there that had things like tomahawks and walking sticks, and they had a trapper there telling about trapping fur. And they had this one thing that I saw at the end. I didn't see it when we were in there. They were loading up the lead. It was an old coffee wagon that was started in 1861 by the YMCA organization to go with the troops to build their spirits, to raise their spirits. So it was a coffee wagon that traveled along. But it was a really cool thing, I guess. They do it once a year, the first weekend of the year. So if you're in the Bushnell, Florida area, you might want to check out the Dade Historical Battlefield and the reenactment that goes on there.
Indian sun rise above the mountains, over the seas of deep